Hey everyone, welcome to another typology interview. We have Laura again. How's it going, Laura?
It's going great. How about you?
Yeah, doing well. Glad to have you back. So you've been in the OP community for a while. We already did an interview, a couple of interviews actually. Um, and I wanted to take, it's great that you reached out. I wanted to take a moment to just follow up on your path and your journey and everything that's going on with you. So what's been happening since our last interview?
Well, I'm trying to adjust to COVID-19 and the quarantine, kind of like a lot of people are. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of tough because you don't know how long this is going to go or when it's going to end. But I'm trying to hang in there, and now that there's vaccines approved, and you know, I can start to see the light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah. Um, okay. Well, do you want to start just on the lighter side about the stereotypes about ISTJs that you disagree with? I know you wanted to talk
Um,
about that.
sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think one of the stereotypes of ISTJs is that we're kind of just robots, and we don't have feelings. All we do is mindlessly follow
Right.
procedures. And I know for me, um, FI is my third function, and there's a side of me that's really sensitive and compassionate and vulnerable, and
Yeah,
feels things deeply. And I think that's a side of the personality that a lot of people overlook.
I agree. Yeah. Um, and also then I guess one of the things is also the demon any that comes out a lot as well.
Hmm. Yeah, because, well, I think it's often stereotyped that ISTJs are very serious people all the time. They don't have a sense of humor, and
Yeah.
and a lot of people seem to think that I'm funny at times, and that I have a good sense of humor. And when I'm comfortable, I do like to crack jokes and
Yeah.
and make silly puns. It's just that I have to be comfortable first to do it.
Would you say that ISTJs have their own specific flavor of humor?
Flavor of humor. Well, I think it's sometimes based on the on the sensory, that's like the sensory is personal for SI. So
Right.
it's like the SI, I think it's often observational humor, like just observations that strike them as funny or amusing. It's kind of that SI plus FI. They notice
Mhm.
some detail that's kind of out of place, and then maybe
What
exaggerated for humorous effect.
What about the stereotype of ISTJs taking things a bit too literally sometimes? Does that apply?
That one does, actually. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, and I mean it's gotten me in trouble a couple times because sometimes I misinterpret what people say, and I think they're being serious and they're really really joking. Like I
Right.
think they're trying to be mean to me because I don't take it as a joke, um, or like let's get this done by this time, and I take it literally, and to them it's just a guideline. So
Yeah. Really good. So since you've been in the OP community, have you seen your life change at all? Have you seen yourself go through a personal growth path? Has it life gotten better, or do you have to blow things up before you get things better? Or
um yeah, I think my life has improved a bit since I've discovered OP because I understand myself better,
right,
and I am, starting to be more comfortable using my demon functions. Like with my demon Annie, David Shannon said, "Don't be afraid to make guesses." And think of yourself like you have 10 guesses,
right,
and don't be afraid to expend those guesses, and they may be way wrong, but just put the guesses out there, kind of like when I'm typing people for the OP class, sometimes I feel like I'm just bullshitting and, I have no idea, but this is what I'm seeing. And this is kind of the vibe I'm getting. And I think before when I was typing people, it would be like, I got to collect all these facts about people. I can't use that. That's just an anecdote. That's just a vibe. I can't just say this person reminds me of this. I got to have some solid facts to stand on. But sometimes the vibe that somebody gives, can be an important piece of information.
Yeah.
And
If it's a corroborating piece of information, then yeah.
But you don't want to go by that only either. And I think that's where double observers really have an advantage, because they can easily go back and forth between both sides. They're not going all in on one or the other.
Yeah.
And yeah, so just being willing to guess more is one thing.
So one of the things I've seen with Demon Any is that you do guess, but a lot of the time it's the right guess. But when that happens, it makes the wrong guesses feel like they're the right guess. Do you get that sometimes?
The wrong guesses feel like the right guess. Yeah, that's happened sometimes. Yeah,
because sometimes you do get it right. Sometimes you hit the nail on the head.
Sometimes you're like when you're trying to type somebody and you're going down the wrong path, but you've convinced yourself it's the right path, and I think it's because I want to narrow down too soon, and also because there's a deadline to type somebody by, so you kind of you want to narrow it down, and sometimes I've done it too soon, and then I see something, well, this kind of contradicts what I've been seeing, but then there's been times where I've tried to force fit it into that box anyway, rather than asking myself, am I even in the right box? Yeah.
So higher any in your stack is just exploring more and more options and not narrowing down. So like sometimes you get to one option, you're like, that's good enough, let's go with this one. And maybe it's right, but you could have explored more options before you decided that this was the right one.
Yeah.
Have you been able to start doing that a little bit more in your life? Have you been able to guess on more options rather than just guess on one and be stuck on the one?
I think so. Yes. And I think I'm starting to be more comfortable with missing information, and being able to fill in those gaps, and with my TE, sometimes I want others to give me the reasons, and sometimes it's like, I don't always have to be asking others for the reasons. Sometimes I can kind of intuit more what the reason would be.
Yeah, I mean, that's your play, right? It's
verified with the tribe.
Yeah. Okay, we have a question right away. How do you work on SIFI sleep?
SIFI sleep. Well, I think it's just making sure I have time in the day to relax and just be able to do what I want to do, and try not to pile on too many obligations, which, I mean, sometimes that's easier said than done. Sometimes I will take on too much, and it's like, oh, okay, I'm doing too much. I need to hold back a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Do you associate maybe self-care and things like that with SIFI a little bit?
It can be. I think, I don't know. I tend to see self-care maybe as more SI, but I'm probably taking it literally, like, showering and brushing your teeth and all that stuff. But yeah, I mean, self-care, sure. Like just being in touch with your values and what you really want for yourself, and irregardless of the tribe. So yeah, that could be a form of self-care.
Do you think maybe it's hard for you sometimes to differentiate between the physical sensation of the emotion and the emotion itself? Do they both go hand in hand? Are they the same thing?
Well, for me, they do, because I often feel emotions in my body.
Yeah.
Like I literally get like like tense muscles, or like I feel like my stomach kind of sinking if I'm sad, or
Right.
like literally want to jump for joy if I'm happy, and have trouble sitting still sometimes. Like if there's a lot of
Yeah.
if I'm feeling like a lot of excitement. So
And so I've seen other people do that, but you're receptive to that. Like you notice that and you say, I must be happy because my body's feeling this, that sort of thing.
yes, yeah. Sometimes it's because of what I'm feeling in my body.
Yeah. Interesting. Yep. Okay. So is there anything more you wanted to talk about personal growth up until now? Is there any?
Well, I can maybe add a couple things that Dave and Shannon said. So like like also for me, like sometimes I will get overly stuck on the rules. Like this is the right way to do it, and this is
Oh, wow.
how the tribe says it should be done. And so one of the tips Dave and Shannon gave me was break 3 rules a day. And and not like huge rules that are going to put you in jail or anything like that, but just really minor rules,
Yeah.
like when I'm working in the library, for example, the library patrons have like a 1 hour limit on the computers, and but if the library patron is doing something important, give them the time extension, or like
Yeah.
being able to waive somebody's late fees once in a while. So it's just the little things like that, or
Right.
or driving through a red light when it's 3 o'clock in the morning and there's no traffic, and you already looked, and I mean,
Yeah. That's kind of illegal, but yeah, go for it.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
the worst thing that could happen is you get a fine, and but I mean,
Right. Yeah.
it's not like they're going to put you in jail for that, if as long
No.
as you don't harm anybody. I mean,
Wow, Laura. Yeah, that's like, how is that for you? Was that hard to get to start doing that, to start breaking some rules like that?
um, well, the red light that one was a little harder to do, but now I've done it a few times now, and I've gotten away with it every.
Good for you. Yeah. Don't do this
Well,
at home
actually,
unless it's for
I
personal
did get
growth.
one ticket, but that was like 3 years ago before I even learned about
Right.
OP.
Yeah.
But and that time yeah, that time
Really
was
good,
just
Laura.
stupid. But
So would you recommend that everyone should do this, or just if you're SI, Dom?
well, I think mainly if you're well, demon NE, okay,
Yeah.
but because if you're savior NE, you're probably doing that too much already, and you want to be
Yeah.
going the other direction. You want to follow 3 rules a day. I mean,
Yeah, that's words of wisdom right there. Any Dom, follow 3 rules a day, guys. Okay, so really good. Is there anything else that sort of helped you in your personal growth? To
yeah,
break out
well,
of
I
your
think
SI?
another thing that they said is just to emulate ENFPs around you that or think about people that are like the archetype of ENFP, and kind of
Yeah.
try to embody that. Like I'm this cool hippie person, and I'm not stuck on the rules, and I just kind of guess my way through things, and I'm
Yeah.
confident about that,
Yeah.
and kind of that funny guy, like Robert Downey Jr., for example. He's
That's right. Yeah. So just in general, be less uptight and
yeah
more open, and yeah. Yeah. So yeah, OE is all about being more open, like the opposite of IJ. It's being more open, not trying to fit everything in your box, stuff like that. Yeah. Cool. Okay, we have a question here. How does SITE work for you? I don't know if that means anything to you.
well, that's my life.
Yeah. Right.
Oh, no. Well, I mean, basically, it's making things work for the tribe in a clear concrete way.
Yeah.
And like for example, what I've done in the OP community is I've tried to make things more clear and organized for people. You know, I've worked on various projects like compiling a list of all the links for objective personality Facebook groups, websites, YouTube groups, and kind of compiling a document and organizing it so it's in one place. And
yeah, you've done a lot of that stuff, and we have a link in the description for, what is it, an OP?
No, that's another project, and
yeah,
and actually it was a collaboration between Miguel Iglesias and I, and I think Miguel is well, Benjamin and I think this anyway, that he's likely a very similar type to me, and so we kind of both agreed that there needed to be something more clear out there that kind of really discusses all the basics of objective personality in just in a linear fashion, because sometimes the information I find out there, it's a bit kind of out of order, and sometimes it's hard for people to know exactly
right.
where to start. So it's called OP for Dummies Guide.
Really good.
Benjamin is going to link it.
It's in the description already. You have some support here. It feels good to break rules sometimes and stuff like that. So one thing you just mentioned there is out of order. How SI is receptive to what order is and what's in order, right? Like there is an order to things. It's like breaking news to people. Hey, everybody, there's like a specific order that things go in, right?
Yeah.
And you're receptive to that. You know that. You see that.
Well, like, for example, if you're going to watch the Objective Personality YouTube channel, and don't get me wrong, I love Dave and Shan's work and their YouTube channel, their videos, but sometimes it's confusing to somebody that's first learning objective personality because they got hundreds of videos. Where do you start? They don't have organized playlists yet for it. I think there's a couple people, you know, in the Facebook group that are trying to organize it into lists. Actually, I think Reginald is, and I can send you that link later to a playlist that he made. So it's like, where do you start? And you find a video like on animals, for example. Well, the animals aren't going to make sense if you don't understand like the cognitive functions first, because the animals come from cognitive functions. So, you know, it's just things like that. It's like,
so like there is an order. You're right. It's just, so, okay. So that's the contrast between SE and SI. We'll get into your shadow functions a little bit. It's a good segue. But like SE, there might be an order, but SE doesn't need to go in order to start learning things. After it gets all the data, then it can start organizing it, and it's really strange. Can you do that sometimes? Do you do that sometimes?
I can do that sometimes, and I've had to with OP to some degree. I'm kind of doing it, you know, out of order, but it's like it just seems inefficient. It's kind of a waste of time. You know, why do it that way if you don't have to do it that way? So
yeah. Well, I mean, like you can tell that there is a big void with Dave and Shan because they're not using all the functions, and like they're just people, right? They can't be responsible for all the functions, and so like, you can tell there's a void in the TI, there's a void in the SI, there's a void in the FE for sure. And there's definitely a void in the NE somehow. I don't know how. I'm very not in touch with NE. You are probably more than I am. But I'm sure there's also one there, right?
I mean, I think so, yeah. I mean, well, I think oftentimes they say that like if they don't have the cognitive functions that they have a harder time understanding them. Yeah.
And I mean, it's not that the information is bad. It's just that, like you said, for SI, it's just not ordered right. And if it was ordered right, then it would be SI friendly.
Right.
Right. And they're creating this amazing, incredible community that I have the benefit of meeting people from all the time on the channel, but they're not also receptive to the community. Like there's an FE void there as well. Like you see that. Yeah.
Well, and sometimes, and I mean, Dave is Savior DI, so sometimes it's kind of based on what's, you know, valuable for him, maybe not checking with the other people that are paying for the class.
Yeah.
You know, what would
what
they like?
value are we getting out of it?
Well, or could even be what works.
Yeah.
Because I mean, Shannon. I guess Shannon has Savior TE, but then Dave has it as a demon. So,
Together they've got those functions covered, I'm sure.
together, but maybe more the F. Yeah, maybe more the FE. FE side of it is not.
Yeah.
It's being covered, and
yeah, I mean, it's understandable. Like I don't know I could cover the TE the way they do. It's not. It's too hard. Yeah. Okay. Have you noticed? Have you been interacting with SE people? Have you noticed how SE is different from the way you do things? How does SE come off to you?
I've been able to, get along with most of the SE saviors that I've encountered, and because it's, at least because it's sensing, it is concrete, that there is some clarity to it, but it's not, it's not as neatly organized.
Yeah, so that's it.
Generally, I can still kind of, I can follow it.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas
so SE seems really disorganized, really messy to you.
I would say for me, any is more that way.
Oh wow. Okay.
Well, because because it's chaos, plus it's not sensing. So it's more, it's just, abstract and.
Yeah. Like that's a huge task to be able to organize the intuition. Like that's the double observing thing. It's just to organize it in the SI somehow.
Mm-hmm.
Do you find like the speech patterns at least of NE is at least easier to follow? Like, do you find that SE is too messy in the speech patterns or something like that too?
I'd have to think about it more. Sometimes I notice that more with NI actually, because like NI and NE will both kind of, speak abstractly and use a lot of analogies, but NI, their analogies are kind of more personal to them. So they may not always make sense to everybody else. Whereas NE, the analogies are just kind of more general. So sometimes, if they're giving analogies, I tend to be able to follow NE easier than NI.
Yeah. Do you see that maybe sometimes SI does something similar where it's too personal and not everyone can make sense of what you're saying because it's such a personal sensory? Or not everyone can follow it or even cares to follow it?
I don't know if I've really noticed it.
Yeah.
That much. Well, maybe if I'm describing like how I'm physically feeling in my body, it might be hard to communicate it in a way that others would totally get it, because I don't know, I feel like they would have to be me and experience it for themselves, but they're not me. So
I get that too, that there's a big depth behind the SI that you can't communicate, so that for you saying something, there's a lot more behind it than is actually coming out.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, like you could like a picture is worth 1,000 words sort of thing. If you've been through an experience, how could you ever communicate it with words?
Sometimes that happens.
Yeah. So like there's a bigger depth behind the experience that can't be communicated that you're experiencing while you're saying it? Or
well, I'd have to think about this more. I think that I think some things might be kind of hard. I think some things might be kind of hard to put precisely into words. And I think people are going to interpret it differently. I think that's the big thing is.
Yeah, that's also something I've really seen with
NE, because I know people can interpret things in many, many different ways, whereas NI is like, and that's sometimes where like NI types and I will clash with each other. Is like they're looking for the one right interpretation. It's this, and I'm like, well, no, it could be this, or this, and
Yeah, I've seen that sometimes with SI where things need to be in clear when you talk about them. Clear means interpreted in one way, like not interpreted in many ways, and that way you've found clarity. Whereas people who aren't doing the SI, you can interpret their words in many ways, and sometimes SI will just misinterpret their words on purpose as a joke, or like
Well, I will do
misinterpret
that
it in the word.
sometimes.
Yeah,
Like sometimes I like to take things hyper literally, for
right.
humorous effect. Like I'll just be super literal, or sometimes I'll just make puns on the spot, So there is.
Yeah, but s- like that's something I've seen also NE DOMs sort of struggle with like text messages and things like this because they're seeing all of the possible interpretations all at once. And how do you pick one?
Yeah.
So I don't know if you have the same idea.
Well, I have that happen to me too. I
Right.
think the difference is that if they're a savior any, I think they're still a little better about getting at somebody's underlying intention, and maybe that's the NE plus that FI kind of combined to
Mhm.
make that NFI. But like they'll see the multiple possibilities, but they can still kind of be able to guess which one is which infer which one was the most likely. Whereas I'm like, this just isn't clear. So
Yeah.
and then
Yeah. You wouldn't even know how to start
and they'll get
interpreting
kind
it.
of
Yeah.
anxious about that. Well, I'm not sure what they really meant here because I can see it in more than one way, and then I have to ask them a question. Do you mean it this way or this way? And which one is it?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So with that respect, I guess the SE can be a little messy and not clear because you can interpret it in so many different ways. It's pointing at one NI thing, whereas for you, it's not clear what that NI thing is.
Yeah, that could be. So it could be SCNI too,
Yeah,
and also I suppose that like if they're SC, they're throwing all these facts, but these facts aren't really relevant,
yeah,
necessarily. Yeah, so it's like,
I,
why are you telling? So sometimes I'll get the impression, why are you telling me this? What does this have to do with
right.
with what we're doing right now?
What's the
You know?
order? Yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, I
yeah.
can get that.
So that's I forgot what I wanted to say. Oh yeah, it's interesting the wording that you use because you say SE is throwing facts, and for us, like we interpret it as details, the facts. SI for us, like SI sees sensory as facts, and SE
Mm-hmm.
kind of sees it more as details. And so to
Mm-hmm.
see details as facts, I can see how that would be like a difficult, challenging.
Okay, so I guess how are you seeing the difference between details and facts? Like,
Yeah. So
I mean,
yeah, I kind of know how SI sees facts as it's the truth. Facts are the truth, right? And for us, details aren't necessarily the truth. It's just a detail. It could be wrong. It could be flawed.
mhm.
Like I don't know. Let's say someone says no, there's three apples. That's a detail. It doesn't have to be right. It could still be wrong.
Okay, but I'm like, well, I saw three apples in front of my eyes, I saw
Right.
it.
Right.
But
But what if there's one
I
hiding
wonder
behind it,
if
right?
this is relating more to masculine and feminine
Maybe.
sensory. Because maybe masculine sensory is more like, okay, I saw three apples, there's three apples. Why are you even disputing this?
Yeah.
And maybe feminine sensory would be more like, well, how do you know that what you saw really qualifies as an apple? It could be, you could have saw this, or this. And I mean,
Yeah. Like, so this is something I've seen with the introverted functions, and I don't quite yet understand how it works with SI. It's more of like a timeless thing. Like there could be 5 apples tomorrow. There could be 10 apples the day after. It's not
mhm,
really a timeless thing. It's just a detail that's changing. Whereas SI is more interested in the facts that don't change. That's
mhm.
what I would venture to guess. Do you see that as
Yeah,
well?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I guess to me, if the facts change, then I don't know, it's not really a fact. It's like a speculation or idea, or maybe a detail. Yeah, I've never thought about details in the way you thought about it. So
I mean,
yeah,
it's SE. So.
it's interesting when you're talking with somebody that has your opposite functions.
Yeah, for sure, 100%. You get kind of bored with your own functions after a while. Yeah. Okay, so we touched on SE a bit. What about we have questions here about TI as well. I'm skipping over some questions. Sorry, guys. As well, what's your view of TI? Does it make sense to the SI?
Well, I know that David Shannon kind of described TI. It's like these are my own personal reasons, my logic, irrespective of the tribe. And I think I do that to some extent. Like there's some things, like there's products I buy because I know that they work well for me. And I'm not checking in with other people because there's no need for me to, because it's my product. Yeah. I'm not sharing it with anybody else. So I don't really care whether or not it works for other people. I'm concerned with what works for me. I mean, like sometimes I'll just buy products and I don't always read the reviews first because it may not be relevant to my situation. So I guess that would be.
So like that still seems like TE to me. It's still looking at what works on the spectrum, and you found what works. You don't need to check the tribe. Like you've tested it objectively. You've seen that it objectively works.
Okay.
Therefore, yeah. So like that's still TE in a way.
Okay.
So, yeah. So TI would be more like, using your analogy, looking at the ingredients in the product and saying this one should work better. Therefore, I will use it, even though it might not work better. That's kind of like the TI.
So, like, do you think it would be inclined to experiment, like with cooking, for example? Like I'm not going to follow the recipe. I'm going to add this ingredient. I just know for my own reasoning this would work.
Oh yeah, if there's a reason behind it, sure. I mean, yeah, that could be.
I guess I've done that on occasion. I don't do it that frequently. I mean, if I'm cooking something that, especially for the first time, that I don't know much about, I'm going to probably trust the recipe more and I'm going to follow the recipe. And then later on, I may discover that I could add more or less of this ingredient or substitute X for Y. But I mean.
Yeah, I know. And for SE, so like that's the difference I've seen with SE cooks. Yeah. SE cooks.
I mean,
yeah.
At least not first. It'd be like a gradual process.
Yeah. So the way I cook is like the way other SE people cook a lot. Sometimes it's not that SE people can't follow recipes. It's just that, we'll take the ingredients. Oh yeah, that smells like that. That'll taste like that. That'll taste like that. Let's put them all together. It should be good. It's like, of course it tastes good. There's good things in it. Like,
yeah, well, yeah. But then it's like sometimes two things taste good, but they don't go well together. It's kind of like, do you want chocolate on your pizza? They taste good separately, but
right. So SE would be experimenting with that and predicting that.
Unless it's like a dessert pizza, but I'm talking more like when I'm thinking of pizza, I'm talking more like red sauce, cheese.
Thank you for being clear. Yeah, really good.
Chocolate.
Yeah.
I'll be right back and just get a drink.
Yeah, sure. Just tell us, we have a question if you're from Texas.
Okay. Laura is from Texas.
Are you?
No, Minnesota.
Yeah, you can hear the Minnesota. Really good. Okay, we had some other questions here. So we touched on TI a bit. Oh yeah, this is an interesting. What are different kinds of memory like for you? Have you thought about your memory a little bit?
Yeah, so there's factual memory, like just being able to recall like names of places or dates or like capitals of states or countries. There's that kind of memory. And I can be pretty good at that kind of memory. I think especially like, if it's personally interesting to me or it personally impacts me in some way. So sometimes it's kind of tying in the SI with an FI. There's like an emotional memory attached to it somehow, and
Right.
like there'll be like I'll remember dates that certain events that happened in my life that emotionally impacted me. I can remember what date it happened, or even roughly the time of the day it happened. And then there's procedural memory, like
Oh,
you're just automatic, like typing on a keyboard or driving a car. I'm just
like motor
automatically
memory.
doing
Yeah.
it. The mechanisms are in my brain, but I'm not really thinking about it.
Yeah.
And then there's visual memory, like being able to repicture scenes in my head. Like
Yeah.
I can
Well,
remember
one
the
thing
way.
I've seen SI be able to do is remember the order of things, and that's just not something I'm tracking. I'm never tracking what order things come in, what
Mhm.
goes first, things like this. Like I could probably figure it out. I might be able to track it, but it's not something I'm conscious of. Do you feel like you're
Okay,
conscious of it?
I'm usually conscious. Yeah, but sometimes like the order kind of ties into muscle memory for me. So sometimes, like, once I do something, the order just sort of automatically kicks itself in.
Right.
Like, I guess an example would be like when I'm in the library and I'm showing, I have to show a customer like how to do something on the computer. Like it might be hard for me to just tell them step by step, but if I can physically go in and do it, and I'm like, oh yeah, that's the sequence.
Yeah. What is that? Oh, yep. That's the sequence. Is that like a chemical rush or something? Like when you've found the sequence?
Rush. Oh no, I think it's like muscle, some kind of muscle memory.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. So he's bringing in some examples here: working memory, procedural, long term, short term, etc. Um, yeah. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Here's a good point about SE as well. Um, do you see scanning the environment, noticing changes, noticing when things are different, out of place?
I've noticed SI as a narrow surveillance of the environment. This one can go either way for me because if it's like in my SI box, I mean, like, and if it's something that I'm interested in or pay attention to, like I will notice the little changes. I'll notice that it's a different color or a different design or layout. But if it's something that I never, some of these things I never really paid attention to in the first place. So then I didn't know it changed. And then
Yeah.
people sometimes tell me, well, did you notice that this changed? And I didn't even notice it to begin with in the first place. So I'm kind of, and in fact, when I learned about Myers-Briggs, for a while I thought it was an intuitive type because I could relate to intuitive type saying that they were oblivious to details of their environment because oftentimes that's the case for me. I there's
Yeah.
some details I don't pay attention to
Right.
because it
What
doesn't
about
really
tracking motion, like watching?
or the task at hand. So
Yeah.
for me, it's kind of like they don't really exist. Well, I mean they exist, but yet they're not on my radar. And
Yeah.
so sometimes it's got me into trouble or I've been embarrassed because I didn't know where a certain object was located, even though it was kind of right in front of me because I didn't have a need to use it myself and it just never came up. And then all of a sudden somebody's asking, like, like where's the 3-hole punch, for example? And I because I didn't need to use the 3-hole punch, I didn't pay attention. And
Yeah. What
so
about like scanning changes, like watching a sports game, being able to keep track of the different players, things like that? That's more of an SE thing, scanning
mhm.
the environment
Yeah.
constantly.
Well, I mean, I think I guess it would kind of depend on the sport. Like I think like football, for example, I think and I'm talking about American football, by the way,
Yeah.
because there's just a lot of players and there's a lot of motion and a lot of sudden quick changes. I think that would be hard to track. But I think I could like something like baseball, would be easier to track because that's a little slower moving. So
Uh-huh.
yeah, I mean, it would depend on what exactly. Like, I probably wouldn't be as good at it as the lead SE would be, but then I'd probably be better at it than like a lead NI, for example. So
Yeah. Okay. What about it, FE? Does that make sense to you? What FE does? What it is? Or are
yeah,
you? Yeah.
and for a while, I thought that I had FE in my stack. One of the types I was considering for myself when I first learned OP, it was INTP. I thought, well,
Yeah.
I think I have FE as a demon because I'm stressing out about it, and I was perceiving that as FE because I think I do pay a lot of attention to the feelings and values of others, and
Mm-hmm.
and I do want to be considerate. I do want to be considerate of that, and I would even say at times that I feel responsible for the feelings of others because I don't want others to be upset, and
Right.
I want
But
others to feel good.
would you say
So
like you don't want to hurt their FI, but you're really not paying attention more to the vibe of the room? You just don't want to hurt individual people's FIs?
maybe. I definitely don't want to hurt other people's FIs because
Right.
I know that, yeah, because I know that my FI sometimes gets easily hurt. Kind of like, this would hurt my FI, so I probably shouldn't do that to other people. So there is some self-referencing there,
Right.
which would be more FI and not FE. Um, yeah, I mean the vibe of the room. I mean, yeah, I kind of do. I can sense the general vibe of a room, but even then, I think it's more like I
How
don't
the
know.
vibe impacts you.
Vibe impacts me, or maybe the vibe of the person that I'm interacting with right in front of me. Like I could
Right.
sense their vibe. It may be a little more difficult to get the vibe as a whole. It'd be easier to maybe track one individual. Okay, this is this person's vibe, and
Yeah.
you know.
Um, and what about knowing what's in and what's not in right now, what's popular, what the different
Uh,
trends are, things like this?
well, yes, I'm kind of 50-50 on that. I mean, I do know like some of the things that are popular, but
Hmm.
I can't say that I pay attention to everything.
Yeah. What about like processing feelings with
Clothes,
other people?
like clothes, I like fashion and stuff. I have no clue. Like movies and TV, you know, I know a couple of the hot new shows, movies that are out, but I don't know all of them. So
Um, that
and
also comes in a little bit into SI, like tracking that a little bit.
okay, so how is that related to S? Well, I
Just a
suppose
little
S would track it more because it's more external,
SI.
maybe. And
Yeah. Um, what about in terms of processing emotions with other people? Is that like very uncomfortable for you if someone were to go and pry into your emotional life?
if they didn't ask me first and they were like insistent on it, yes. But then sometimes I'm the one that's venting to other people, and I just want people to listen. Like, okay, like
Hmm.
I guess I want my emotions validated. Okay, okay, so
Yeah.
maybe that is FI. Then I want my
So,
FI validated.
but what I've seen when people with TE over FI do that is they're not talking about their emotions. They're giving reasons and reasons, and they want people to see the emotions and the reasons. They want to they want their emotions validated, even though they're not sharing emotions.
Okay,
Do you feel like that too? That happens?
I maybe because it's like, well, like maybe I'm upset, for example, that somebody didn't think that some work I did was good enough, for example. So maybe I'm seeking validation for like this was a good idea. You were smart, you were intelligent, and you were correct, and getting
Yeah.
validation that way, that then I can, if I feel good about myself.
So that's like a TE validation for your work and stuff like that.
Yeah, because
Validating the team.
sometimes I'm paying too much attention to like statistics and numbers and metrics and stuff, kind of like, well, this person, guessed so and so's type right in the class, and
Yeah.
and I noticed that these people seem to guess closest to the person's type, or this person is producing more widgets at this
Uh,
rate, and so it is
you
kind of
see
that.
validation in that.
Yeah, and it was sort of like, well, I remember in high school, I competed with my classmates, for grades and stuff, because I wasn't
Wow.
good at like sports or music or art, and I wasn't popular or the best looking. So, but I was good academically. So that was an area where I could stand
Yeah.
out. So
Yeah.
I kind of put effort to try to get a good, a high class ranking, and
Yeah, it's really funny because our functions are really opposite. I'm seeing that because like
I would feel bad, like if somebody did better than me and they didn't have to try as hard. That really made me mad, and it still kind of
yeah.
does. It's sort of, yeah. It's like,
Yeah. Well, I mean, in the end though, when you do succeed, you can repeat that success. That's the difference. Whereas like some of us might be able to succeed this one time, but we won't have a system for it. We'll have to redo the work every time. Whereas once you've done the work, it's done. You can do it over and over again, right?
yeah, and that's kind of what I'm after, is like, okay, you
Yeah.
know, I can get it right every time, and it's sort of like with typing people in the OP classes. I'm still trying to figure out what the system is, because you think you know what you're doing, and then there's another curveball thrown at you.
Yeah.
That's deceptive. It's kind of like, like one person I was typing, it seemed like he was, you know, like really good at like teaching others, and I thought, this guy is Savior Blast, and it turned out he was Blast Last, but he was an ISTP, so he was bringing ST clarity, and it was like,
Mhm.
okay, now
Yeah.
I gotta redefine how I'm seeing Blast in people, and
Yeah, it's really frustrating because they bring a lot of SE anecdotes where the SE can't become SI. You can't do that. Like it's just an anecdote. It's just true this one time to give a general idea of what the NI is.
because it's like, well, then the next person is going to have their own unique situation. So it's like,
Exactly.
I can't really take what I've learned. I feel like I can't really take what I learned and apply it to everybody else. And
That's right.
and and so, because it's a one time thing, and that's what makes typing to people so hard. It's like, well, we got
Yeah, that's
almost people
that's
on the
the
planet.
SE.
These
Yeah.
situations unique. How do you?
Yeah, that's the SE versus SI, where like SI wants things to be factually true for all cases, and it wants the universality of it. And you're right. Like this worked for this one person, but we're never going to see this case again. So what's the point in learning it?
Well, yeah, well, David
Yeah.
Shannon said, yeah, that kind of brings me to another thing that they said when they typed me and gave me audio feedback. They said, you know, being able to apply more of like being able to see principles and then being able to apply them more to other situations, and things are more universal than you might think they are. Kind of like like the work model
Yeah.
you learn from working at McDonald's could also apply to Burger King, and you could stretch it even more to make it apply to Amazon.
Right. So I guess what they're trying to get at, and I'm not sure if this will even work, is they're getting at that, okay, these little anecdotes, try to take the NE from these anecdotes rather than the SI from the anecdotes.
Yeah.
I think that's what they're trying to get at, and I don't know. I have no idea how you would do that on your function stack.
Yeah, I don't know how I would do it. How I would do it either. But it seems like their anecdotes are kind of, I don't know. To me, they're SE because a lot of it is based on physical appearance. Like they got observer eyes, they got a frog face, and
Yeah.
how can you use that to type somebody?
Well, they don't use it to type people either. But yeah, you're right. Yeah.
But
Yeah. So yeah, one thing that I notice about the big difference in our function stack is that I'm not tracking numbers at all. I'm not tracking statistics at all. For me, that doesn't mean it. Like even on my YouTube channel, I people are kind of annoyed. I don't have the number of subscribers or anything like that because I don't know. It's not something that that's not how I judge success. I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, and I mean, yeah. And I'm kind of like I can see that, I can relate to that, but yet I don't because there's a side of me that's kind of obsessed with numbers. And I've had a couple people ask me, well, why don't you have a YouTube channel? And and part of it is because, well, first of all, I wonder, well, do I have anything new to say that hasn't already been said? Because there's like hundreds of typology channels out there. They're kind of all saying the same kind. They're all kind of saying the same kind of thing. What could I add that's not already there? But then I think, well, if I'm an ISTJ and there aren't many ISTJ YouTubers talking about typology, so maybe I could occupy some special niche. But then a lot of it is just like this fear of like, the tribe isn't going to like my videos. They're gonna rip them apart. They're gonna say rude comments. They're gonna say objective personality is horseshit, and why are you know what I mean? And it's like
Demon Windu is probably listening right now.
yeah,
That's what he likes to do. Yeah.
but you know what I mean? It's like
He got banned, by the way, so he's got a new name if you see him in the comments.
yeah. But it's like you gotta overcome that, and I know too that I'd probably be obsessed with like subscribers because it's just the way way I think. I'd be like obsessed with, okay, how is my subscriber count changed? How many likes am I getting? Oops, somebody disliked it. Why did they dislike it? I got to find out why they disliked it, and I got to fix that. And I'd be obsessed with comments and stuff, or like how many views am I getting? And it's just like, but then I can see your point too, because you can have people that subscribe to your channel, but are they really watching your videos? And are they watching them all the way through? That's another matter.
Right? I could be this. I don't know. I could be this mess. I could be talking this whole mess that nobody gets.
Are they liking it? Are they linking them? Are they sharing them with other people? So I mean, I guess there's different ways to measure success, but yeah, it's something I've been thinking of doing, and I just. And then I don't know. I worry about the wrong people seeing my videos. There's certain people that I don't want to see my videos, like family, for example, because they're kind of anti-YouTube and putting yourself on YouTube, and it's like I don't want them to see it, and so I don't want to be too public with it. So
right. Okay. Eugenia wants to know. How true works for the TE DOM? How much do you conclude something to be true? How do you conclude something to be true?
Yeah, and I mean, I actually have a hard time answering this because I don't know that we can know anything for absolute certain. I mean, you can. I mean, I guess for me, it's like evidence. You can gather more and more information and evidence, and you can. Yeah, like you can keep doing experiments and you keep getting the same result, and that tells you it's more and more likely to be true. And I guess for me, sometimes it's like, well, like if others agree with me or think I'm right. I might think there's some truth there, but I know that's
So yeah, you're talking about Bayesian statistics a little bit.
It's like,
yeah, you're talking about Bayesian statistics a little bit. I don't even know if you know what that is, but that's pretty much how Bayesian statistics sees things. Like you can never be sure about something; you can only be more and more confident in it.
yeah. It's kind of the way I see it.
Right. The other thing is, like, I see a lot of people with the SI axis see truth as facts. That's truth sometimes. Do you identify with that?
Truth is facts. Yeah, I can see that.
Okay. All right, let's see. We've got some other questions here. What is tactile perception like for you? Do you have changing habitual movements? I don't know what that means.
Changing, yeah, I'm not really sure either, but I mean,
blockheads here.
tactile perception. I mean, I guess just, I mean, like feeling things in my body. I mean, and sometimes, or sometimes, I mean, maybe tracking the changes in how something physically feels. Like I know clothes don't fit, for example, because something feels different. Okay, like a sleeve feels more loose, so my shirt stretched, or it feels tighter than it used to be, so it shrunk, or I know I have my keys in my pocket because the pocket feels heavier. There's stuff like that.
Laura, we're getting low on time and we've got a bunch of questions and we haven't even really talked about NI.
well, should we? Okay, let me just quickly finish this question, then should we jump to NI?
Sure, let's get through these questions quick. What you did was a good answer. Did you get your own self?
People think, yes, too much. I need to just be less dependent on others' opinion. What are your experiences in the relationship between an object and a representation of that object? I mean, the representation is not the real object. It's like symbolizing the object, but it's not real. It's like perception versus reality.
Cool. Let's see what else here. We have some. Okay, yeah, let's talk about NI really quick. Not many other questions. So how do you see that in your life? Do you know what NI is? Do you see it? Are you able to access it somehow?
Well, it's like, I mean, David Shannon described it as narrowing down your concepts. So, right. I mean, I think I do that, like with OP, for example. It's, got, clear, simple concepts that you can follow, and I like that about the model. It kind of makes it simpler when you're, trying to understand functions, like that. But I know that away from OP and going into MBTI land, they talk more about kind of like, well, like having aha moments, kind of like.
Yeah. What about developing your own concepts? Do you ever do that?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. What's that like? How does that happen? What does it take for that to happen?
Well, I think okay, maybe it's not. Yeah, maybe I don't know if it's my own concepts. I mean, like sometimes what I'll do is I'll like observe patterns around me and then try to narrow down those patterns.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, like you know what a concept is, obviously, from the Enneagram, right? Yeah. Do you have any concept that are yours that you've developed? Any analogies that you made?
I'd have to think here.
Yeah.
I know I have. I'm just not, thinking of any at the second.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, NI it's in your shadow. Like it's not in your 4 stack, and it's the last one too. So I mean, it wouldn't be like you asked me to NE or to FI. I'm at a loss. So
Mhm.
yeah, cool. Well, really, really great, Laura. So what would you recommend for people who are just getting into OP then, because you've mentioned that it's just a big mess at the moment. So
Well,
is your guide helpful?
I hope so.
Yeah,
Yeah, please tell me how wonderful my OP guide is.
right.
You can see it in the
But
link under Benjamin's video.
but also constructive criticism, you like that too, don't you?
Yeah. Constructive criticism. Yeah. No. Seriously, if there's any part of the guide that maybe is not clear enough or confusing to you, or you think is misleading somehow, let me know, because the guide really is a work in progress between Miguel and I, and
Right. Yeah.
we want to make this objective personality information more accessible to more people. That's
Yeah,
our
that's
goal.
really good. Yeah. One last question. Do you like repairing things like craft or other stuff? Do you have any kind of fine crafts that you like doing?
No, I'm I'm,
No.
I'm terrible at fixing and troubleshooting things.
Mm, yeah.
Um, I get really frustrated because I just want things to work immediately. I don't like tinkering around. I just I get impatient. It's like, okay, here, I'll give it to you. You take care of it.
We got some cool feedback for you. Your OP guide is really great. I looked at the
Hey,
guide. It's wonderful. And another
hey.
one is excellent.
Okay,
So
all right.
easy peasy to follow. That's a compliment.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Well,
Okay.
thank you so much, Laura, for setting this up and for coming out. Really appreciate it. I learned a lot from you today.